Welcome to the Sub Hub Podcast. I'm Danny Moreno.
And I'm MK Sullivan. And in this preview episode, we have Francesco Pupi, fan favorite professional runner from Italy. He's sponsored by Nike. He has participated in Sierre Zinal 6 times, achieving an impressive third place as his highest finish. He's a familiar face on the Golden Trail World Series circuit and has emerged as the 2021 Golden Trail World Series final winner at the one race El Hierro. Beyond his running achievements, he is actively involved in improving the sport and its processes as a founding member of the Pro Trail Runners Association. With his profound knowledge of this sport, Francesco adds both color and historical insights to every race he participates in. This episode is brought to you by Never Second. Never Second is a system of fueling products formulated specifically for endurance athletes that provides a blueprint for success by allowing the athletes to test, optimize, and perfect their fueling and hydration. They take the guesswork out of performance fueling. I personally use Never Second on all of my training runs and my races, and I have no GI issues, and you know exactly how many carbohydrates you're taking in based on the names of the products themselves. If you want to try Never Second out, go ahead and use code SUBHUB25 to get 25% off of your purchase. Hey, Francesco, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
Yeah. We are so excited to chat with you. You, like many of the runners we've been interviewing for Sierre Zinal, we would love to just talk for hours. But in this case, we're just going to focus on this race. So when it comes to you, you have a lot of experience with this course. You've ran it 6 times, with your highest place being 3rd place. And then the second time you ran it 4th place. And then the remainder of the times have been generally about the same. Can you explain to our American audience why Sierre Zinal is such a prominent race?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most iconic and historic events in our sport. It's got deep tradition, an incredible field of athletes, and I like to see it as the point of contact in between different athletes with different backgrounds and different events, sky running, trail running, mountain running, and also road running, because there is quite a few people who may have never tried mountain running or have very little experience with trail running who come to do Sierre Zinal because it's so fast, it's pretty much non-technical, it's quite approachable. So yeah, it's like a melting pot of different people. And I think what makes it so special is also the tradition, the beauty of the race, because it's called the race of the 4,000 meters peaks. There are just above the course. The course is ran along a valley called Val d'Anibière, and the scenery is pretty incredible. Also, the ambience that creates around Zinal. It's a very, very small place where like all the elite runners gather the days before the race. So it's really cool to hang out with them and experience that community. I think it's part of what makes the race so special to me.
Yeah. And you were touching on the fact that this is kind of the melting pot of races for trail running. What type of athlete do you think has like more of an advantage or does well here?
So you definitely need to climb really fast. Like you definitely need to be a really good climber, but also you've got to be able to run very fast after the first big climb. A lot of people are intimidated by the final downhill, but it's really like super short. It's just a short dive down to the little village of Zinal. So I like to see it as an uphill race with just a small downhill at the end. And I think the transition in between climbing and running very fast and flat terrain is what like the main challenge of the race. So it might suit athletes who are really good climbers, kind of like Remy, for example, who is also really good on the flat. But sometimes it's very suitable for road runners. Like last year, Andreu Blanes, he comes from orienteering, but he has a really good track and field background. Nienke, the first time she ran it, she was second with an incredible time. that proves that those type of athletes can perform really, really well on that course. Also, when I tried to race for the first time in 2016, I had a little experience with trail running actually, and I was still mainly a road runner, and I ended up on the podium, so it went very well.
I think that's definitely like a testament to the fact that I feel like coaching podcasts always talk about the fact that like speed can help you with climbing, and people don't. And you actually posted about this the other day, and people don't always believe
Grayson says.
Yeah.
And then like I like to think that fitness is fitness regardless of where you train it. So I think that race really rewards the fittest athlete and the most complete athlete. Maybe like, yeah, it's definitely not a race where the downhill plays a huge factor, but apart from that, you have to be a really good runner. You have to be super fit in order to win.
Yeah, so you've been on the start line 6 times, and I'm guessing maybe you've experimented with different training schedules or cycles going into it. And so what have you found personally that translates well to racing well at Sierre Zinal?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've definitely got to Sierre Zinal through different approaches. Actually, the first time was just to try to race. I had little expectations. Then, to be honest, probably the field wasn't as deep as in the last couple of years. Maybe I ran 2:36, which is usually good for a top 10, but maybe not on the podium for the last couple of years. I've definitely always tried to make it always an A race, like a big appointment on my calendar. But then it's not been always possible due to different circumstances. For example, last year when I broke my elbow, it was maybe like the first race after surgery. So it felt like a huge reward to just be there and make my comeback to racing after the injury. But I feel what really pays off is you just have to be like very complete. But if you're like really fit for climbing, I think you'll do well there. There is always like 2,200 meters to climb. So it's probably about 7,000 feet, which is a lot. You need to face Sierre Zinal as an uphill race. And even after, Chandelier is like considered the end of the main climb. And that's true because you climb 1,500 meters before Chandelier. It's kind of like where the flat part starts. But even there are still like 500 meters or 600 meters to climb, which is, not a joke. So you got to be careful. Like, I think the approach, the strategy also matters. And in the end, it's an uphill race.
Have you done anything in your different in your training this year as opposed to the last 6 years or 6 times that you run it?
So this year I got an opportunity to do an altitude training block of 20 days, which will end 2 weeks before Sierre Zinal. So I'm really hoping to put in a lot of good work, a lot of mileage, and also intensity, and then really focus on recovery and tapering before the race. Like, I think this type of training pays off if you have time to process it and if you show up as fresh as possible at the race. I think if you go there that you're maybe a little tired or not like fully motivated or 100% focused, it's not a race that you can, like, the race is not going to reward you. You cannot really survive that type of intensity. So right now I'm in the middle of a big training block with a lot of intensity and big mileage. Last week I ran almost 120 miles. So for me, is a lot. And yeah, I'm hoping to complete this altitude training block and then just benefit from the super compensation mechanism and show up as fit as possible. In previous years, I haven't had the chance to do an altitude training block right before the race. I'm used to altitude training sometimes, but never. I've never really done it before this race, so I'm curious to see how this will translate into the competition.
I'm curious too. I feel that for the athletes that aren't acclimated to altitude, that's the type of race that once you feel yourself going backwards, it's hard to recover, especially because it's so deep. So as soon as you start having a rough patch, like 20 people pass you, it feels like. So that's great. That's really exciting to hear that you're able to do that. And so how does this Sierre Zinal, it sounds like, you're, like you said, you're at altitude. The first time you've ever done that. And where does this race, is this truly an A race this year, or is it kind of like fitting into a bigger plan?
It's definitely an A race. I think for me, it's impossible not to consider Sierre Zinal an A race because it's my favorite ever. I think it's got everything, and it's always been the race that has mostly inspired me since I started running in the mountains. So yeah, it's an A race. I'm hoping to show up as fit as possible and do my best. And also to go back to your point, we should not forget that it's like a lot of the courses run in altitude, like above 2,000 meters. So you have to, like, athletes who are acclimatized definitely have an advantage. And especially like for like the ability to run fast in altitude, maybe at 2,200 and 2,300 meters, that would be well over 7,000 feet, I think.
Yeah, I think the course gets up to like almost 8,000 at some point.
Yeah. So to really run fast there, and by fast I mean close to 5-minute mile pace, or even under it, you have to be fit and acclimatized.
Yeah. One of those things you really don't want to go lactic after the first climb or 10K or so. So we know that you have a great pulse on the sport, and I would say you're also a huge fan, like MK and I. And this year for Sierre Zinal, it's the 50th anniversary, which is a huge deal for a mountain race, I think, to have this much of a legacy and still be going as strong at 50 years. What athletes are you excited to compete against and honestly just watch compete against each other on the women's side?
On the women's side?
On both sides. So like that
both
you're,
sides.
Yeah.
Okay. So on my side, there's really a lot of athletes for whom I have the greatest respect, and like I get a lot of inspiration from many athletes. Maybe I'll choose three. Of course, Killian, who is the course record holder, and I think with that performance, he really showed that he can do anything. Like, he's really the GOAT, best. Because before that, I think not many people believed that he could do this record, and then he lowered the course record by 4 minutes, which is a huge amount of time for this race. So to be part of that day for me was incredible. And even if I came, I think 13th place, I felt really lucky to be able to be part of that experience. So Killian is definitely one of them. I think Remy, because you mentioned that it's an A race for him. He wants to go for the win. He wants to go for the record. He's from Switzerland. He actually lives quite close to the town of Sierre. So it has a big meaning for him. And I think since last year, he is brought his fitness to another level. Like I don't think there are many people who are running as strong as he is right now in the sub ultra distances. And finally, Patrick Kipngeno, because I think he has the potential to win and is probably not as famous as many other athletes because he's from Africa. And we like to say that our sport is inclusive, but when it comes to African runners and our athletes who are coming from not from the US or from North America or from Europe, we're not as welcoming and as open as we label ourselves, I think. So to me, it would be really cool if he could win. Is super strong. I watched him running in Innsbruck at the World Champs and last year in Thailand. Is rewritten records in many famous and important races across Europe and the Alps. So yeah, to me, he is a big inspiration. And on the women's side, I think it'll be cool to watch Judith, who has done really well in 2019, the year that Maud set the record. She's never won Sierre Zinal, but she definitely has the potential to win. Also, seeing how she performed at the World Champs and then at Dolomites last week. Ninke, because she's my teammate, and I think her versatility is just amazing, from the roads to the track to trail races. And I don't know. I think it would be really cool to, to discover a new talent, maybe from South America or from Africa or from Asia, and just see her perform really well. I think South America has it's pretty cool that South America has always been strong at this race. There is always a group of people who come from either Argentina or Mexico or some Latin American countries, who are personally invited by the race organization. So that's very cool to me. And maybe someone will potentially be in the top 10 from that group.
That would be awesome. It's going to be such a good race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what were you going to say, Danny?
I just wanted to slip in one more question before you finish us.
Yeah.
Francesco, you have so much experience going to this race. Can you give people a little bit of insight of what type of support some of the elite athletes get?
You mean during the race?
Before
like
the race.
Refreshments?
Like you said, like they invite South American athletes. And so, what does that week look like leading up to the race?
Okay. So the race is part of the Golden Trail Series. So, of course, all the Golden Trail Series rules apply. And there is different levels of support that athletes can get depending on their ranking and their elite level in the Golden Trail Series. And then, of course, the race is also part of the World Mountain Running World Cup. So there is also other ways to get support from that side, from the WMRA. And then, like, personally getting in touch with the race organization, who has always invited professional or elite athletes from all parts of the world, basically. It's like, I don't think there are many examples of races who are able to give so much support to so many athletes in our sport, because the elite field is incredible and they're probably supporting 300 elite, close to 300 elite athletes in total between men and women. So to me, that's amazing. Of course, we should also consider that Sierre Zinal is has a like a yeah the field is like close to 6,000 people. And that's not so common to see in a single day trail race. It's even bigger than UTMB, for example. And basically, like the elites usually gather in Zinal the days before the race, and you can stay there pretty much the whole week in Zinal, which is at 1,600 meters. There is like trails, of course. You can run the course, you can run them flat. They're giving accommodation and meals and all kind of support that you could ever ask for, I think. So I was like super impressed for my first experience in 2016. And I still love to go back to Sierre, also for this reason, because it's not as common to see in our sport to see elite athletes so well taken care of.
Yeah. And final question before we let you go today. Do you mind sharing with us your goals for the race this year?
Yeah. So I still like to think that I am an athlete who can get close to the 2-hour 30 mark, who is like the excellence for that race in the men's field. I think only 5 or 6 athletes have ran under the 2-hour and 30-minute mark. And I think if I'm able to like show up really fit and have a good day, I'm capable of getting close to that. And then, of course, the results and the ranking is just a consequence. So as always, the goal is to do my best and race as hard and smart as possible. And just be grateful to be there and to run such an amazing race, be grateful for the opportunity to experience what is probably the event with the highest profile in our sport.
Sweet. Well, we're excited to watch your race, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm MK Sullivan.
And I'm Danny Moreno. And in this preview episode, we chat with Robbie Simpson, who is professional runner for Adidas Terrex from Scotland, United Kingdom. He has run Sierre Zinal 10 times, starting in 2012, and he has only missed the 2020 edition. Robbie has had 5 podiums and 2 top 5s at the event, coming in as a strong favorite. He recently won the Eiger 35K, and what we love about Robbie is his lightheartedness. We believe this shows why he's so consistent and successful in the sport, and we think you all are going to enjoy this listen.
This episode is brought to you by Never Second. Never Second is a system of fueling products formulated specifically for endurance athletes that provides a blueprint for success by allowing the athletes to test, optimize, and perfect their fueling and hydration. They take the guesswork out of performance fueling. I personally use Never Second on all of my training runs and my races, and I have no GI issues. And you know exactly how many carbohydrates you're taking in based on the names of the products themselves. If you want to try Never Second out, go ahead and use code SUBHUB25 to get 25% off of your purchase.
Hey, Robbie, thanks for joining us today. I'd love to start with, where are you right now?
I'm in a place called Saas-Fee in Switzerland, about 1,800 meters or 6,000 foot up. Yeah, in the mountains. It's great.
And you just won a race at the Eiger Trail. How are you recovering from that?
Okay, actually, yeah. I think I was probably more broken going into that race than coming out of it, because I was, I had a bit of a niggle and not that many weeks of mountain training in the legs, so I was quite sore before it and then immediately after. But since then, it's been good. It's been a really good block. So yeah, feeling okay, thanks.
And are you going to stay in Switzerland for a little bit, or are you going to head to Sierre area relatively soon?
Well, I'm really close to the race area, actually, so it's only about 90 minutes away. So I'm just going to stay here, and I've been able to run on the course as well because it's so close by. So this is like as close as I want to be without being too close, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned you were probably going to take the train, right, to race day morning
Yeah, I
or
think
race day
so.
afternoon?
So first it's a bus. I have to take the bus down into the valley like 50 minutes, and then on the train it's just 15 minutes from there. So yeah, as long as the Swiss transport system's on time, which it usually is, then it should be stress-free.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I can't think of a single American race where I would ever rely on public transportation.
Absolutely
ever.
not.
Absolutely not. Never. But yeah, it is quite funny. So we've seen that you've actually ran this race, we'll say a little bit more than a handful of times. Having run the race before, why do you keep going back? Like I myself haven't run many races more than 2 times.
Really? Okay, 2 times. Yeah. So the first time I did it, I didn't have the best experience, but I just really loved the course, and I thought this is definitely a race that suits me, and it's the perfect race for me. It has a bit of everything. Like in my opinion, it has something for everyone. Every kind of runner can run this race, and like there's a bit they'll enjoy. And I think it's just the best race because of like the distance as well. Like ultra people can do it, short distance guys can do it, like VK people, people like faster flat running as well. It's just a really good all round race. And then I think the second time I ran there was when I had like my first kind of breakthrough on the course. I had a good race, and then I was like, wow, this is just unbelievable. I remember in that race, I think it was that time, I overtook Killian in one of the sections, like near the end. I didn't beat him; he overtook me again. But like, it was just crazy to be racing against people like that, and then like at that level. And I've had some really incredible races there. Like some of the best days of running ever have been on that course. Like very close to winning, or a lot of drama and stuff. So I just keep going back because it's like, yeah, I just love it. And you just never know. Like I've never had a day where everything's gone well. Like things go well, like for part of the race. So it just keeps you going back thinking like maybe one day I can just crack it completely. Yeah.
Do you think it's a race that you get better at over time, or do you think that kind of the same strategy does well there as the years have gone on?
I think you definitely learn more the more years you run it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I know how to run it my best, if that makes sense. Like every time I've done it, I've had a slightly different strategy, and it's not necessarily planning. It's just sometimes I start that uphill and just feel awful, like really, really bad. And then things click later in the race. And then other times I run up that climb and think, oh, I'm actually going quite well here. And then you'll suddenly have a really bad patch somewhere else. And I think the year that I felt I ran my best was 2021. And the uphill was quite average. The section after that, I had this stitch and I was running really badly. But then it just clicked like halfway around. And then I ran like my best last kind of section. And it was just, sometimes that happens. Like there's always a way to kind of make it work, even if you don't have your best day, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah. I think that's really important for our listeners to hear, especially people who maybe are just learning about the course or they themselves have been watching it on the screen, because I think for these shorter races, we tend to think that you have to be in the top 3 at the top of that climb to potentially be on podium, or top 5. But there's actually a lot more race to go after that climb still, on those
totally.
Runnable parts. Yeah. Do you have oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was going to say last year's male winner, like he was a perfect example, like coming through the field. He was even behind me on the climb and I was quite far back. So
do you have like a favorite part of the course?
Yeah, like I really like the section just before Hotel Weisshorn until just before the end. Like when it gets very steep at the end, normally by then I'm a bit tired and I don't enjoy the very last bit of the descent, but I really like that faster running that's quite a narrow trail, a bit twisty. I like the little uphill to Weisshorn, then I like those rolling sections and then those faster downhills. I really like that. definitely. I don't like the first uphill very much.
So you are a bronze medalist for the Commonwealth Games in the marathon. Do you think that training for the marathon helped you get better at this course? Or do you think that like you already kind of knew what you were doing and like the marathon just kind of helped you with training?
I think it definitely helped with the training. Like I definitely had a good race there before I did any marathons and I really focused on them. But I think the marathon training just gave me the fitness and kind of the engine for the last part, because I didn't used to race very long races. So for me, this was often the longest race of the year, or I'd only do 2 long races in the whole year, and this would be one of them. So then doing marathons in the spring just made it easier to then, run for 2.5 hours in the mountains in the summer and have the kind of speed at the end, like in the marathon, the last 10K when your legs are really failing and then you have to run fast. It's quite similar to this race, I think. But then there's pluses and minuses. I felt like the marathon sometimes took a lot out of me in the early part of the season. So then I couldn't really get to full fitness, or I'd be lacking something. It's always a balance of what you train for this race. Like ideally you'd be just good at everything, but you have to focus on certain areas. And, some things are good and some things take a bit of a hit just with the training time you've got and things. So yeah, in a way, but not, I don't think you have to run a good marathon to do well in the race.
Yeah. I was kind of on the vein of my next question is, with your experience of doing this race so many times, what type of training do you think has been most beneficial for it? Or what is your perspective on that?
I think personally for me is to work on the uphill. Like that's an area where I find I can lose a lot of time in this race. And like normally I'm quite good at running uphill. Like I'm better uphill than downhill. But in this race against that field, like guys like Remy Bonnet, like they're just way better than me uphill. So I lose loads of time there. And then I'm always okay at running kind of fast and undulating single trails. Like I can do that okay. So then it's less of a thing to work on. So it's just getting the balance of those two things right. Because there was one season I had an injury like all through the spring and early summer, and I couldn't do any flat running at all. Could only do uphill. And then actually in the race, I still managed to run well. Like it was just the same as every other year, basically, without any flat training. So I think you can, like for me, it's really just nailing the uphill as well as possible with as little energy as possible.
Yeah, you were mentioning that it kind of went the same. So your PR is 2:32:36 on this course, but you have run 2:33 like 7 or 8 different times. that is consistency right there.
So annoying because like you think, this year. Sometimes I wonder, like, does it actually make any difference training for the race, or will I just run that time? Like if I just get there reasonably fit and not injured or something. But like I think it's every way I've done it has been really different. Like sometimes I remember one time I had a really good uphill section and all the way to Hotel Weisshorn, like raced it really hard from the start and then faded a lot at the end, and it was 2:33. And then other times I've come through really strongly and it's been 2:33. So it's maybe yeah.
Well, maybe this is the year. So as far as this year goes, how has the training been have you been focusing on that uphill stuff like you were talking about?
Yeah. I mean, this year's been really different because I did the Comrades Marathon in June, which is very close to the trail season. And it was a bit of a worry, like recovering from that and then getting back to full training. And it took a lot out of me. I was knackered for ages. And now I feel like I'm really only just getting into the training. Like Eiger came so soon, that race, and I felt not good on the climbs. Like it was okay, but I just noticed the lack of like elevation in the last months of training. So now I feel like it's coming together, but it's a real mix because I've not done that much flat running since Comrades either. And then it's just every time I do this race, I come into it from a completely different place. But I feel like the climbing is coming together, and certainly like the kind of single trail sections and downhills also now there. So I just hope I can run well enough on the flat and just, have a good race.
Oh, were you going to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to ask, so this being your 11th showing at Sierre Zinal, I believe, do you have a specific goal for the race, or is this just like another race in the season that you're just trying to do your best at?
My goal is always to to feel good, like to finish feeling just happy and that I've done my best. And like that does happen in that race. I've had a lot of times where that has happened. I've been really glad. But last year I was just a little bit disappointed. So my aim is to just be happier than last year at the end. And I think that is, to achieve that aim, I think I just have to run well in the middle section. Like that's the part I've just faded on a little bit in the last few times. And yeah, I just want to have fun, really, like feel like I'm racing. I think last year I was in no man's land for most, like I couldn't see anyone in front or behind for so much of the race. And it was just a bit like, yeah, I didn't feel great. So this time I want to be involved in a race and then just have something in that last 10K as well. But yeah, just mostly enjoy it. Like I don't, like it's very difficult to say like, oh, I want to run this time or this position because there's so many amazing people in the race and the time depends on, conditions and stuff and how hot it is and all these things. So it's just really trying to get the best out of myself on the day and yeah, have a lot of fun.
Do you feel like with your experience at this race, the heat is the biggest factor that can swing the race one way or the other, or are there other things?
Yeah, heat. I mean, it really depends. Like this summer's actually not been that hot. So last summer was really hot. And on race day, I think the heat was a big issue because, like a lot of guys from Spain obviously did well. Kenya, British people like me struggled a bit. I mean, maybe, there's probably other things as well, other factors, but I'm hoping this year isn't as hot. Like it just hasn't been as hot recently. So I'm hoping it stays that way. But the altitude's another thing, I think. Like, it's quite high, obviously by American standards, it's not that high, but most of the race you are above 6,000 feet and it goes up to, I guess, like 7.5 or something like that, which is quite a lot for people living at like sea level and things. So I think that's another factor too. And certainly being here training has helped that. So yeah, but like heat, at least you can manage it like sort of with ice and things or water. So yeah.
Yeah, you can't really manage altitude. It just is what it is for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just have to breathe more. I don't
know. Like you mentioned, it sounds like you really enjoy the battle. So for example, that year when you went back and forth with Killian towards the end of the race, are there any runners racing this year that you would be excited to, be racing alongside of or beating, etc.?
I think any of the top guys, if I'm honest. Most of the time I see them disappear off, and then finally at the end, likes of Remy Bonnet, like I've raced him quite a few times on this course, and last year I think he finished like 4 seconds in front of me, but I didn't see him at all the whole race, just because he was that far in front until the very last descent. So any of those guys, I'd just be so happy to be racing alongside. Yeah, anyone better than last year just running solo.
Yeah, truly. There's nothing quite like no man's land.
Yeah.
It's the worst. Well, we're really excited to see you race this year. And thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks a lot. It's been great to chat.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie.
Cheers.
Welcome to the SubHub Podcast. I'm Danny Moreno.
And I'm MK Sullivan. And in this episode, we have Patrick Kipnieno. He's a professional runner and is part of the Run Together team based in Kenya. Last year at Sierre Zinal, he was second, and recently he was the back-to-back world champion in the uphill in Innsbruck and in Thailand. Whoa, okay. Patrick has been dominating the Valsier World Mountain Cup this year. He won the entire thing last year, and this year he's second place behind his teammate Philemon, who is also running Sierre Zinal. We're super excited about Patrick because he and his team have been training in the mountains this year instead of just in Kenya. So give this a listen. He also gives us some great insight into other Kenyan runners that we should look out for in the race. This episode is brought to you by Never Second. Never Second is a system of fueling products formulated specifically for endurance athletes that provides a blueprint for success by allowing the athletes to test, optimize, and perfect their fueling and hydration. They take the guesswork out of performance fueling. I personally use Never Second on all of my training runs and my races, and I have no GI issues, and you know exactly how many carbohydrates you're taking in based on the names of the products themselves. If you want to try Never Second Out, go ahead and use code SUBHUB25 to get 25% off of your purchase. Hey, Patrick, thanks for joining us today to talk a little bit about Sierre Zinal.
Welcome.
So Patrick was the second place finisher at Sierre Zinal last year. He has some experience at this race distance. So I'm sure that you're excited to go back to Sierre Zinal and duke it out with some of the best names in the game and go for the win. How are you feeling?
And now I'm feeling good. I'm well prepared for Sierre Zinal, and I'm going to try my best to win. Even though I know there is we have some strong guys, but I'm going to try my best.
That's awesome. Yeah, we were very, very impressed with your win recently at the World Championships in the VK. You won in a very dominating fashion. And as you know, but if our audience doesn't know, essentially how Sierre Zinal starts is kind of 2 VKs at the start, and then it's somewhat of a runnable half marathon after that before descending into the finish. Which part of the race are you most excited about?
Pardon?
Which section of the race are you most excited about?
In Sierre Zinal,
Yes.
I think the whole course is good, and they were having a lot of fans cheering us, and the race was good, and I hope I'm going to face the strong guys, and I will fight.
Will this be only your second time running Sierre Zinal?
Yeah, it is my second time.
Cool. So Patrick was the world champion at the vertical, like Danny just said, and he also has a half marathon PR of 1:02. So this race is like right up his alley. And so I'm just curious, like, what kind of training have you done over the last year, or what have you done differently in training to prepare for Sierre Zinal coming back for your second time?
For the last 3 months, I was doing long run, like 20 kilometers, 25 to 30. And I think I'm ready to race. Yeah. And for now, for the last 1-2 weeks, I ran around 12 kilometers, and I was feeling comfortable. Last weekend, I ran 4 kilometers uphill, and I think I'm ready.
So you've just added some bigger volume into your training to kind of prepare for the longer distance.
Pardon?
You've added some volume to your training to prepare for the longer distance as opposed to last year.
Yes. Because last year I was only going for 17 kilometers to 20, but this time around I was going 25, 30. Yeah, I think I'm ready.
That's great. What for your training, do you mostly train by yourself or do you train with a group?
We have a camp in Kenya, Run Together camp, and our camp we have a strong guys who are running marathon, half marathon. So we have a good group there, and we normally train very hard.
Do you also race on the roads during the off season from trail, or do you just focus on trails?
I was running before road races, but in 2016 I got an injury. So for now I cannot run a tarmac road. I only run in a rough road.
So you find that you are able to stay healthier training and running trail races?
Yeah, it's good for me. Yeah.
So we know that you are very dominant in the Mountain Running World Cup. You nearly win every race that you stand on the starting line for, and many times get the course records, which is extremely impressive. And we were curious, both MK and I participate a lot in the Golden Trail World Series, and this race, Sierre Zinal, is part of multiple series, as you may know. And so we are curious if you're running it for, obviously there's the prestige of the race, but is it to get points for the World Mountain Running Cup, or is it to start being a part of the Golden Trail World Series?
It is part of for me to shift from short distance to long distance. And also, I'm going to try my best to defend the World Cup title.
Will that be your last World Cup event, or do you have a couple more after Sierre Zinal?
More race.
Okay, that'll be your last one. So you said that Sierre Zinal is you transitioning to some longer races. Do you plan to run some longer races next year? And if so, which races are those?
I'm going to run content rates, and I think I'm going to adjust my training, and I will run content rates.
That's great. We are very excited to hear that. We both think you'll do extremely well in the Golden Trail World Series. And obviously, we're very excited that this is the first step towards that. Lastly, just going back to, the race this year, we definitely pin you as one of the favorites. Are there any athletes that you are particularly excited to race against and compete?
Yeah, we have many athletes from Kenya, and also we have athletes from Germany, and they are very strong. We are athletes from Italy, and I think the competition will be very tough.
Yeah, this race is always crazy competitive, as you know from last year, but it seems from the research that Danny and I have been doing on who is signed up this year and who's still planning to run, it's going to be crazy this year. But I imagine that is a lot of fun for you because, like Danny said, you step on the starting line and it's hard for you to not win. So I imagine that the competition probably just helps stoke that fire.
Are there any names that, maybe the audience may not be aware of from Kenya, or maybe, people that you train with that we should keep an eye out for that perhaps haven't made a name for themselves in the mountain running arena yet?
Yeah, there is a guy, my training mate, Philemon Criago, is a strong guy. And there is another Kenyan, my neighbor, who is training in my neighbor camp, Kevin. He's also a strong guy. And I think it will be a very competitive race.
No, it's so exciting, especially because trail running can be so Eurocentric. I love that these like vertical races and Sierre Zinal are races that that like bring athletes from Africa, from Asia, from the US, like all over, instead of just being European athletes. So it's exciting to see teams like run together, bringing a bunch of athletes from Kenya to race in these prestigious trail races. Do you mind, you don't have to, do you mind sharing with us what your race strategy might be for Sierre Zinal this year?
I think for me, I will run my own race. Mm-hmm. So if my fellow athletes would follow my strategy, then I hope the competition will be good.
All right. I like it.
I like it too. Racing for the win. That's what we love to hear. Well, thank you, Patrick, so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you compete on race day, and we will definitely be following diligently. And thank you for sharing those other names for followers to, be noticing at that start line.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Sub Hub podcast. I'm MK Sullivan.
And I'm Danny Moreno. And today in this preview, we talk with Anthony Felber. He's a professional runner for Cetas X Matrix based in France. He has multiple top 10 finishes in the Golden Trail World Series. And at the age of 25, Anthony is a strong upcoming French runner that a lot of people have their eyes on. Last year, he finished 11th, which was an incredible race considering he was 24 at the time. And this year, he's coming in with a lot more volume under his belt. So we're excited for you to get to know him a little bit better.
This episode is brought to you by Never Second. Never Second is a system of fueling products formulated specifically for endurance athletes that provides a blueprint for success by allowing the athletes to test, optimize, and perfect their fueling and hydration. They take the guesswork out of performance fueling. I personally use Never Second on all of my training runs and my races, and I have no GI issues, and you know exactly how many carbohydrates you're taking in based on the names of the products themselves. If you want to try Never Second out, go ahead and use code SUBHUB25 to get 25% off of your purchase.
Hey, Anthony, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Danny. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, could you tell me where you're at right now?
So right now, I'm in my home in Chamonix.
Cool, awesome. And when are you going to head over to Sierre Zinal?
I will go to Zinal next Thursday, so in a small week, and I'm really impatient.
Yes. Yeah, so 1 week to go. So you finished 11th last year. What kind of motives, I guess, are you coming into this year's race with?
Yes, exactly. So last year was a really good year. I didn't expect it to finish at this position. So now I want to come back, and I'd like to improve my time, because for this race, the time is like for a marathon, for example. It's really important. So the main goal will be to be able to go faster than in 2022.
Yeah, no, definitely. What strategy did you have last year, and what might you change for this year's race?
It's funny because last year I didn't have a main strategy, because I was supposed to do the race, but just not. It was not a big goal for me. I went to Samoritz in Switzerland to do a big training camp for the races we will go in America after. So I spent 4 weeks in St. Moritz, and then I didn't know if I was able to run fast in Zinal. And it was a good day, so I decided to push all along the race, and it was really nice because I had no pressure, and I just enjoyed all the trails. So this year, my strategy will be to maybe to stay not to start too fast, like the year last year, and then I will try maybe to manage well my pace, and to have more time, like a scheduled time for each station, to be able to stay in my plane.
Yeah, I would say looking back on my own race last year too, I think everyone is convinced you have to get out hard, but there's still so much more race after the climb. Like, it's more so important, like, you're in a good position and you don't lose the race there, but you also don't have to win the race on the first climb. I don't think.
Yes, exactly. Actually, I think that the climb, it's like 1/3 of the race.
Yeah.
And then, so the major party of all the race, it's running on the not flat, but a flat uphill. I like to call this trail like this. So you need to climb fast, not to get too far for the first groups. But then you need to be able to run fast. Otherwise, you can lose many time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Did you change any of your training with your coach going into this year's now versus how you approached it last year?
I didn't do any races since the Mont Blanc Marathon, so it's been a while now, and I could have done a good training for this race, with some specific intervals and some like flat training, and also uphill training. So I think this year I will be more able to have a good pace all along the race. Well, I hope so.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's cool because you also are part of Cetus Matrix, a team that I think is very unique in our space. Could you explain what you think the benefits are of being on that team?
There are many benefits to be on this team because, as you said, it's maybe not the only one, but one where the goal is to, like, we runners, we have nothing to do with the brands which are supported us. So we just have to run like we can find, for example, in the cyclism. So we just have to run, and we have a staff around us to help us to perform, like a training coach, a mental coach, and a nutritionist. So the big advantage that we will have next week is that we will have many people. Like, actually, there will be 2 times much more people for the staff than the runners.
Wow.
So it will help us very much, and especially for all the aid station, because we will have 3 or 4 people all along the race to give us like some bottles or gels, and this is really important.
Yeah, especially with such a dense and close race where you're running in and there's potentially like 8, 9 other runners running with you, at least to the first couple aid stations before it spreads out. To have somebody dedicated to you, that's awesome. And from my understanding too, with Cetus Matrix, so Matrix is like a type of technology that's applied to some of the shoes uppers, and so you're not one branded shoe. You're not just Solomon shoes. Any shoe that uses the Matrix upper, you can use. So you kind of have like a bunch of options for this race too.
Yeah, exactly. This is really nice to be able to choose the shoes depending of the race of the people, because we didn't have all the same fit, and also we can change if it's dry weather or wet weather. And so, well, for me, I will run with the Pulsar of Salomon, because I think that those are the best shoes for this race. But I know that maybe if Lucille was there, she would have run with the normal shoes, and this is quite exciting to be able to choose the right shoes for the right race.
Exactly. Yeah, I was about to ask which shoes you decided to go with. It sounds like the Solomon Pulsar.
I was too quick.
As far as people that are going to be in the race, are there runners that you are excited to compete against?
Yes, well, I think that everybody, sorry, everybody will be on the start line. So it will be really fun to race against the one I'm used to race with in the Golden Trail Series, but there will be also more road runners or some Swiss guys from the orienteering, for example. So I'm really excited to be able to compare myself against the best runners in all the different specialities of the sport.
Yeah, it is very unique in that it's sort of like a melting pot of runners from different disciplines, which is really cool. And you have all of the World Cup runners too, from like the Sierre Mountain World Running Cup. That's awesome. Are you willing to share what your goals may be, like time-wise or place-wise, for this year?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my goal will be to finish the race under 2 hours and 35 minutes.
Nice.
Because last year I was 2 minutes slower, and I like when the numbers are like beautiful, or when it's easy to remember. So this is a good step to increase. And the best French time for this race is like 2 or 3 seconds before. So if I can reach if I can go under 2 hours and 35, then this means that I will have the best French time. So it's even better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who has that time right now?
It's François Gonon.
Oh, okay.
He is not running anymore, but he was one of the best in orienteering, and he came once to Zinal and crushed it.
Yeah, that just made me think it'd be so cool if they promoted all of the country's best times. So, like, if we knew what the best American time was and Spanish time, I'm sure people in the sport, may know. But yeah, that'd be cool. Do you know?
This will be really a good thing because I don't know. I just know the French time because I'm
Yeah,
French, and I was close last year. But
yeah.
otherwise, it should be interesting to have like a ranking for each country.
Yeah, kind of like Diamond League races, or track races. When they finish, they'll say like area record or national
Yeah,
record,
yeah, exactly.
and that's
Like the
really
national.
cool.
We
Yeah,
should ask Greg for the live to write on the screen if
exactly.
this
And
kind of
then,
things.
yeah, and then you could say like, 10 national records were broken this year's race, besides just the course record, which obviously is the pinnacle record. But it just makes it even, okay, cool. I think we're on to something. Anyways,
Yeah, we
small
should ask them
tangent.
because it's each year is the same race route,
Yeah.
so it's easy to compare. We can't do this with all the races and in trail because there are always some changes because of the weather. But for this one, it's exactly the same path. So
Yeah.
definitely they should done this.
Yeah. No, definitely. As far as, like you said, the same weather, which the weather slightly changed. Maybe I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago because they made the time later. But for yourself, how do you manage what is assumed that it'll be like a warm race?
Yeah, the start it's quite late in the morning. I think it's 11.
Yeah.
So we are not really used to this, but for me, it's not a problem. I like it because you are not stressed the night before the race, and you can just wake up easily and take time to eat your breakfast. So even if it's a warm day, it will be warm for everybody.
Yeah.
So this will be it's interesting to manage well for like the aid station and the water during this race. So even if you're not the best one, I think if you have the best management of the race, you can improve a lot in the rankings.
Yeah, because it is unique in that it's one of those races that you really don't have to carry anything. Like pretty much
Yeah,
everyone is just running free, except, a couple people will wear belts, but nearly no one has a vest on. So you're going really light. And so you're very dependent on what you decided, the day before was going to be at your aid station.
exactly. It's like the races in America, but
Yeah.
here in Europe, I think it's the only one.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us for this short preview, pre-cap of Sierre Zinal. And we're definitely going to be cheering you on. And yeah, it'd be great to see you get into that top 10 this year.
Thank you very much, and I'm really excited to do my best for this amazing race.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Welcome to the Sub Hub Podcast. I'm Danny Moreno.
And I'm MK Sullivan. And in this preview, we talk with Eli Hemming, who has been a guest on this show a couple of times now. He's a professional runner for Salomon International based in Kremlin, Colorado. He started the summer season with an incredible double. He won Broken Arrow Sky Race, and he was second at Mont Blanc Marathon behind Remy Bonnet. He was the top American at Sierre Zinal last year and is coming in with a lot more international experience. So we think that this year is going to be even better for him. And he's definitely a contender for the top places after his performance at Mont Blanc Marathon. This episode is brought to you by Never Second. Never Second is a system of fueling products formulated specifically for endurance athletes that provides a blueprint for success by allowing the athletes to test, optimize, and perfect their fueling and hydration. They take the guesswork out of performance fueling. I personally use Never Second on all of my training runs and my races, and I have no GI issues. And you know exactly how many carbohydrates you're taking in based on the names of the products themselves. If you want to try Never Second Out, go ahead and use code SUBHUB25 to get 25% off of your purchase.
We shut that door.
Hey, Eli, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, let's start with where you are right now.
I am in Kremlin, Colorado, just at Tabor's family's ranch where we live.
Nice. So the last time we chatted with you, you were heading off to a very inspiring triple of Broken Arrow, Mont Blanc Marathon, and Mount Marathon, or Marathon. Yes, Mount Marathon,
Mount Marathon
in Alaska. And you crushed it. You won Broken Arrow, and then you flew over a week later and got second in what I think is one of the deepest fields we've seen this year by far, in the sub ultra roll on the men's side. And you got second there, which is incredible. First time there. And then you didn't actually end up doing the third race. So we were curious, one, how did it feel coming off that double? And two, why didn't you end up completing the triple?
Yes, so the triple was ambitious to say the least. We were told that the double was a bad idea, and then it's so easy. Like, I love racing, and it's so easy for, like, somebody dangles a little race in front of me, like, oh, it's only a 5K, right? I can do that. And so we got done with Broken Arrow. We recovered well, and then had a great day at Mont Blanc. But then the day after Mont Blanc, Tabor and I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't walk. Like, this is not good. We're like, okay, well, let's go for a hike. We'll figure it out. Like, we'll get some movement. It'll feel better. And then we're walking backwards down the hill that day. And the whole week kind of proceeded like that. It was just every day it was like, oh no, I'm not feeling any better. So we kind of took a step back and like, okay, if we make another trip, and then we go try to race Mount Marathon, which is one of the most heinous 5Ks in the world. I don't think there's any other race that's quite as damaging as that. I don't think I'm going to be able to walk for a month. And then that takes another race out of the mark, because I want to do well at Sierre Zinal here. But so we kind of just said, okay, it's smarter just to take the time off. We can come back and race Mount Marathon when we haven't raced 2 weeks in a row. And we're trying to learn from our mistakes and not be dumb athletes.
I can totally relate to that. The not walking part. Mont Blanc Marathon wrecked me more than any race has ever wrecked me. I still haven't found that level of unable to walk. Tommy and I ended up, I think, flying home a day early from our trip because we were like, we can't even see anything because we can't move. Like, we're just sitting in this Airbnb. But I think that was a really smart decision on your guys' behalf. And I'm glad that you guys are hopefully feeling healthy now. Are you feeling healthy now?
Yes, feeling healthy now. I think it was the right choice. I was still jealous looking at the photos of Mount Marathon, but I definitely think that could have injured me doing that.
Yeah, it's always a risk for sure. So this will be your second time going back to Sierre Zinal. Last year, you were the top American. How are you feeling about going back?
Yeah, last year was a tough race. That was my first trail international race. And to show up at one of the most competitive races there is was eye-opening, to say the least. So I got there and realized, wow, I am not quite up to par yet. And so kind of coming in this year, we have focused a lot more on this race specifically. So hopefully I can get a little bit higher up in that overall rank this year.
Yeah, I would say you're coming in with tenfold international experience between the final last year and Mont Blanc Marathon this year. So now looking back from, a year ago, Eli, looking at your training then versus this year, did you make any major adjustments or minor adjustments, etc.?
Overall, the biggest thing that we've changed is we've kind of brought volume back into the training. Last year, I was focusing on learning how to trail run. I wanted to learn how to run on technical stuff. I wanted to learn how not to wreck myself on big downhills. And to do that, I kind of brought back the volume. I wasn't the fittest person I've ever been. And I was trying to learn how to trail run. So now I think I've gotten that a little bit better now. And so now I'm bringing the volume in and trying to continue my progression with trail running skills and whatnot. So hopefully the volume and remembering how to run fast, because after that first climb, it's a surprisingly fast race.
Oh yeah. Are there any like specific workouts that you've done in the lead up to the race that you're just like, that either like made you feel so fit or you're excited about?
Not really. So I'm a believer in training shouldn't be that sexy. I think if you're finishing a workout hands on knees, like feeling like death, that's probably went too hard. And so I've done a lot of workouts that are just like, yeah, that was good. I got quality in, and that's what's important.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. My big leading mantra is consistently good over and occasionally great. Just like constant good work leads to great performances. So that's exciting to hear. Just to like bring a little humor into the equation potentially, do you remember when you started feeling like death last year, or did you ever feel like death at a certain point?
Oh yeah, I absolutely felt like death. It was very early on. I went out. I came in and I was like, okay, well, I think I'm a pretty good climber. I think I run up hills pretty well. And there's this guy. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Killian. I was like, oh, I'm gonna run with him. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. I tried to do that, and I really paid for it. And so I got most of the way up the hill, and all of a sudden just pop. And the whole rest of the race, I was going backwards.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
I was gonna say that sounds rough, but I was on mute. Oh man, but again, I can relate. So.
So
now I think that's what happens when we first show up to European races. You're like, oh yeah, I can just go out with them. It's fine.
Yeah, you live and you learn. So now going into this year, are there any parts of the course that you're like extra excited about?
I am excited about the climb, but I'm more excited about the top, the flatter bit this year. I've kind of been focusing a little bit more. Actually been running quickly before this year's for this training. Like I've been spending time on dirt roads instead of on really technical trails. So I'm going to try not to go out as hard and run faster on the flats. It's still uphill, but it's flatter.
Yeah, that'll be huge. Just like having the dirt road stuff under your belt. Because I think there's only so much like prep that you can do for that uphill. It's like, it's just important to be able to be fatigued and then be able to run fast on like those basically dirt roads. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting to hear. Is there anyone specific that you're looking forward to racing?
I'm just excited to see everyone at the Golden Trail. It's kind of been like every time I show up to one of these races, it's kind of like a big family. Like I get to see everyone catch up. And that's kind of why I'm coming to this race, see everybody. And then once the gun goes off, we can stop making faces at each other and actually race together.
Yeah, that is really cool. Being part of the, like, committed to the series throughout the whole year, it is kind of like a big family. And, it's kind of cool because you like learn each other's like strengths and weaknesses too. And so I think you can like get more strategy behind that in like a very respectful way. So we're curious because last year, I would say like you really started to break through on the international scene in the last two races of the Golden Trail World Series here in the States. And you had already done Sierre Zinal, and I'm sorry, I forgot if you had done any Golden Trail before that. I think that was your first race, correct?
That was my first, yeah.
Yeah. So why did you decide to go back to Sierre Zinal instead of waiting for the last two United States races?
So this one was a good race for the wife, Tabor. And it's something that she does really well at those fast courses. And so we had ones that were good for me and ones that were good for her. And we love racing together. And so this one is a good one for her, but also I think it's good to stay out of your comfort zone every once in a while and go like, this might not be the perfect race for me, but I want to go see if I can get that top 5, top 3.
Yeah, it definitely was a good race for Tabor last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
For those listeners that don't know, Tabor was top 10. Was she 9th?
She was 9th, yes.
Yeah, she was 9th, which is huge. We had 2 Americans in the top 10, and that's just insane. Right. So last question, unless Danny has another one that she wants to shoot in there, is what is your goal, if you have any goal other than just having fun?
So I was looking at times, and I think I'd like to be under 2:35. Kind of getting under that, and I think that kind of gets you in that top 10 placing pretty much every year. I was like 2:41 last year, but I think focusing more on time for me at this kind of race makes a little bit more sense in my head. I can look at the splits, but overall, it is more of a go have fun, get out of the comfort zone, and try not to blow up quite as hard as last year.
I love that. Well, personally, I really hope the Hemmings bring back some top 10 finishes, and we have Americans in the top 10 on both the men and the women's side. That would be pretty historic, which would be awesome. But yeah, thanks, Eli, so much for joining us. We are going to be cheering you on next weekend, or this weekend, since this will be coming out the week of the race. And yeah, good luck. Go get them.
Thank you so much, guys.
Welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm MK Sullivan.
And I'm Danny Moreno. And in this preview episode, we talk with the Remy Bonnet. Remy is a professional runner for Salomon International, based in Charmey, Switzerland. Remy was 8th at Sierre Zinal last year, but followed up that race with dominating wins at Pikes Peak, Flagstaff, and the Golden Trail World Series final. Remy talks to us about changes in his training heading into this year event and what it would mean for him to win as a Swiss man. He is coming in as a strong favorite, and we can't wait to see what he does on the day.
This episode is brought to you by Never Second. Never Second is a system of fueling products formulated specifically for endurance athletes that provides a blueprint for success by allowing the athletes to test, optimize, and perfect their fueling and hydration. They take the guesswork out of performance fueling. I personally use Never Second on all of my training runs and my races, and I have no GI issues, and you know exactly how many carbohydrates you're taking in based on the names of the products themselves. If you want to try Never Second out, go ahead and use code SUBHUB25 to get 25% off of your purchase.
Hey, Remy, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey.
So you recently won Mont Blanc Marathon in a new course record. How are you feeling since that race?
Yeah, it was like the plan was to try to win this year because I didn't did great during this race. I managed to do it like 2 times fourth, and I have to drop 2 times also. So it was kind of a revenge for me to win it this year. And I'm really happy about the time and the shape during the whole marathon. So it's a good news, and I hope the same shape for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that was an amazing race. But we noticed that you didn't do Dolomites. Why did you decide to not do that one?
Yeah, because I am doing 2 sports. In winter, I am doing ski mountaineering in high level also. So I have quite a lot of races during all year long. So I try to really focus on some goals during the year. And Dolomites was not on the plan. And I plan to really focus on Sierre Zinal now. So I did a huge block of training. And now I think I am ready for Sierre Zinal.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really smart. I feel like as athletes get older, they get more into that pick and choosing which races you're really passionate about. So we noticed that you have raced Sierre Zinal 3 times, including 2020, which was kind of a unique year. And that year was actually your best time. But we were curious which of those 3 Sierre Zinals you think was your best.
Yeah, I think the one you said it was the best because I was like quite all the time with Kilian during all the race. So it was a dream for me to be able to follow him for 25K or something like this. And now I think I can run much faster this year. So I train harder, I think, and I know a bit better myself also. So I will try to do a better time this year.
Is there anything specific that you're doing in training right now to prepare for the course?
Yeah, before I was only training in uphill because where I live, there is like mountains everywhere and I didn't like to train on flat. But this year we really focus on flat stuff. Like I did all my session on flat, most of the session. And I think I improve a lot, like the technique. And I think it helps me also now for the uphill to train on flat. So I hope this year will be the good recipe for Sierre Zinal.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone who doesn't follow Remy on Instagram, you definitely should. It's a lot of picturesque mountainscapes. But I have also noticed that you've been on the track a lot more. So that's pretty cool that you're incorporating more speed. That's a theme I feel like a lot of the top mountain runners, we're seeing more and more them promoting how that helps your uphill form, etc. Is there anything that besides the speed that you're doing differently in training? Like, are you incorporating more strength training, etc.?
Yeah, I am running like more mileage than before. Before I was doing a lot of cycling beside, and I was not running much because I was scared of the injuries and everything. So now I am like running much more than before, and I feel that I have more strength in the legs, and also when it's a bit longer the races, I feel more comfortable, and I think it's a big step for me this year to have more mileage, and I feel much stronger than the past years about this.
Do you also run? Oh, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and we also introduced like a lot more speed with my coach. Like I start with a new coach 2 years ago, and before that I was doing all alone. Like I was training on myself, and I was just like doing always the same session, and just one time per week I was doing a hard session, and most of the time I was just going for fun in the mountains. And so now I am really focusing on goals, and we plan really well the weeks, and I think it's a huge difference compared to before.
Do you run during skimo season too, or do you like pretty much only ski?
Yeah, I ski a lot, but I try to keep 2 sessions per week to still like keep the muscle a bit alive for the running season.
Yeah, I figured, but I thought I'd ask anyway.
And but it's always hard because I have the snow like at home, so I can start from the home like with the skis. So it's always hard to go running when you can go skiing. But I buy a treadmill so I can do some session on inside when there is too much.
So you said you got a new coach 2 years ago. Do you train with a group or do you still train by yourself?
I train by myself with my coach, but like during weekends, I always go with my friends. Like I have a lot of friends who are good at cycling, so I go like most of the time doing long stuff with the bike during the weekend. And but during the week, like I am training most of the time alone.
Nice. Who is your coach, by the way?
It's Simon Gosselin. It's the coach of Sidas Matrix team.
Oh, nice. Awesome. So it sounds like you have changed a lot of your training. Which parts of the course do you see yourself improving the most? Because that's kind of scary that you weren't running that much before. So that's pretty incredible how stronger you've gotten in just the past few years. I mean, anyone who saw the Madeira stage race, I was there in person. That was an outstanding performance every day. But yeah, which parts of the course do you think you're going to see the most improvement?
Yeah, I think in the uphill, like I have no problem normally. I can follow the leader without putting myself in the red zone. But then I think I improve a lot when it's become a bit flatter and that I have to run fast again. So we try to do this during my training, like the last 2 months, like to do session in uphill and then session on the flat directly. So I think now I am capable of running fast uphill and then directly like really fast also on the flat. So I think it's a huge advantage if you are really prepared with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And are there any specific competitors that you're excited to race against this year?
Yeah, of course, Kilian will be ready for the win again. And there is a few Uganda guy who come also. So they will be really fast, I think, on the second part of the race. So it will be an exciting battle, I think, for the first spot on the podium.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. You passed on Dolomites and then now you're doing Sierre Zinal. How does this fit into the rest of your year?
Yeah, it's good because I had like a lot of time to train really hard like the past months. So now I feel ready, and I think it will help also for the next races because I will go to USA for Pikes Peak and Mammoth Trail. So after Sierre Zinal, I will focus a bit more on the altitude. And but I think all what I did like from now, it's good also for Pikes Peak. I want to try to really improve the time I did last year because I really think that it's possible to go way faster. So I will try this year to be a bit more prepared with the altitude and to do a bit better.
Yeah, I think that course is also like one of those courses that the more you know it, the better you are at it.
Yeah.
Just like Sierre Zinal, like, yeah, the more experience you can have on those two courses, I think is just always better.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, as an American, I'd love to see you continue pushing the envelope on that course. That's a pride and joy for us the faster the times get there. So that's really exciting. And then Mammoth Trail Fest, MK and I will both be there for that, which is awesome.
That's good.
And so for Sierre Zinal, you are a Swiss person. Can you explain the importance of this race in Switzerland and what it would mean to win or have an extraordinary performance there?
Yeah, for me, it's like the race to win. Like I will not stop my career if I didn't win it. Like I have to win it. And of course, like it's a race that I have in mind like all year long. And so like I have every friends who come cheers me, my family, and I know everyone of the organization. And so like for me, it's like it's a dream to win it, and I will try to make it happen like this year or the next years.
You heard it here. He's not stopping until he wins it.
Yeah. I love it. Will you go run the course before the race? Because I think you live a little close, right?
Yeah, I live like 2 hours from the start, but I know really well the course, so I don't need to go there for training.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we're really excited to like watch this year's race. It's shaping up to be insane.
Yeah. Do you think the course record will go down this year?
I think it will be close. Like I don't know if it will be beaten, but I think it will be close.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thanks, Remy, so much for joining us. And we can't wait to catch up with you afterwards and see how you do. We'll be cheering you on.
Thank you.